Well, in 5 minutes, we're going to show you how to use NZGrapher. So I've typed NZGrapher into Google and I'm clicking on NZGrapher Jake for Maths. The first thing we need to do is import our own data. So either from an Excel document or a Google Sheet, we'll copy the data that we want to use and we'll come back into NZGrapher and we'll click on Paste Table and we'll paste our data into this section and click on Import to import our data. Right, well this data's got Year 12 and Year 13 students, it's got male and female, and it's got full day absences, uniform entries, and number of lates for the entire year. In my investigation, I'm interested in if the median number of lates for a Year 13 student is greater than the median number of lates for a Year 12 student. Before we take our sample, we need to clean the data. We need to go through the entire list and clean out any data that's irrelevant. Student number 3's got no lates. So I'll click on row and delete specific row and get rid of student number 3. Also note that student number 11, which is in row 9, has got a weird number of lates, and I think that's a mistake being entered into the computer. So I'm going to click on row and delete row number 9, which is student number 11 as well. Now you'll need to discuss that in your planning that you've cleaned the data out. Alright, well we're ready to take a sample. So let's click on Sample and More, Sample, and because our two groups are Year 12 and Year 13, I'm going to sample based on the year level. I'm going to click on 30 students from Year 12 and 30 students from Year 13, which means I'm using a technique called simple random sampling. 30 is the minimum sample size for each group, and it's going to randomly pick 30 from each. Notice that the Year 12 students is a lot more than the Year 13 students, and you might choose to use a more effective technique called stratified and work out your sample proportions based on your population size. Right, well I've clicked sample and I've got 30 Year 12s and 30 Year 13 students in my sample. If you make a mistake, just click on Reset Dataset. It'll take you back to the entire population ready to start again. Alright, well, I'm ready to draw my graph. So let's click Graph. Let's click on Dot Plot, and variable 1 has to be my numerical variable, which is the number of lates, and variable 2 has to be my two groups, which is my year level. My dot plots pop up here for each of my groups. I'm going to click on Summaries, and the statistics for each sample are going to pop up here and here. And that includes the minimum, the lower quartile, the median, the mean, the upper quartile, the maximum, the standard deviation, which some classes may be taught about, and the number is how many in my sample. If I click on Box Plots, it'll bring up my box and whisker graph. And if I click on Informal Confidence Intervals, which is new to level 2, my informal confidence intervals pop up on my docs plot. It's worthwhile changing the graph title into something more useful, like Year 12 and 13 lates at Aotea College, and clicking on Update Graph to bring up a new title. Alright, well, something that's useful and a bonus, at the moment my two groups are Year 12 and Year 13, but I'm going to come down to this color by box and I'm going to select their gender, which is kind of like a hidden variable behind the scenes, and it will color in the two groups into their male and female groups. Now what's interesting is the Year 13 students, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 students are all female. And in the Year 12 group, the top 2 students in the sample are female as well. And that's something that would be useful, a kind of a pattern or trend, and you might want to discuss that in your analysis. If you spotted an outlier, and this person here is not an outlier, it's not sufficiently far enough away to be an outlier, but if you did spot an outlier and decided it was an outlier, you could go back to row and remove it, identify what row that outlier is and remove them, but make sure you discuss that in your analysis as well. Alright, well the last thing is to make sure you save it. So you can either right click on the graph and save image and then copy it into your Word document, or if you're using Google Docs, left click the graph and drag it up to your Google document, hold the left button down and bring it down and let it go to paste it in. Brilliant.